Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the last time we're going to talk about Star Trek Picard. We're here to talk about episode 10 of season 3, which is entitled The Last Generation. And of course, before we get started, this is your warning that we are going to be obviously spoiling things. So if you have not watched this episode, obviously since it's a series finale, you probably should watch it before you hear us talk. But that's up to you. I'm going to give you to the count of 3, and then we're going to get talking about it. So, 3, 2, 1. Hi, John Delancey. How are you? Okay, let's go ahead, guys, and start chatting about this episode. And we'll do first impressions first. And Emily, you've got some sort of hot take that you want to... I don't think it's very hot or a take, but enjoy. Go for it.
I'm just wondering if there was intended commentary on Jack creating this, accepting the Borg's invitation and feeling this false sense of community and being willing to destroy everything for it all because he needed a hug. And like, all I could think of is how much have people destroyed throughout the history, our history, all because they needed a hug.
Are you trying to talk about yourself here or what?
You know what? Not specifically, but it might also apply.
Blake, how about yourself? That's all Emily's got, I guess.
I mean, how do you follow that? Emily has boiled the entire episode down to Jack needed a hug. No, I like this. This whole series has been fantastic as far as a send-off for the Next Generation crew. And, you know, we'd heard a lot about how the last 2 episodes were basically a movie. And having watched it, I both agree and disagree with that assessment. I mean, it looked very cinematic in terms of how it was filmed, how it looked. But this was a series finale, a proper finale as a send-off for the Next Gen crew. And it felt more like an old school episode than it did a film. But I liked that.
Yeah. I'm gonna do my own little hot take here. And I'm gonna say the Borg stuff wasn't that impressive. I was kind of sitting here going, this is it? Okay. There's a lot of build-up for not much. I mean, I did enjoy what happens on the Borg Cube and what happens on the Enterprise. It was fun, but I was left thinking, okay, this is kind of lukewarm for me. And then we got the last few scenes, which was the epilogue, and I was like, okay, yeah, I really didn't care about the action stuff. I just wanted to see these characters, so I was good. Now, Miss Powell. I don't like Miss Powell anymore because they got to see this sucker in the IMAX, and so I have lots of jealousy issues. But it's okay. I will work them out, maybe. But, yeah, Emily's not going to work it out. She's done.
I would say I won't hate Miss Powell for seeing it on IMAX, but I'm the one that has a 100-inch projection screen in my room that I got to watch it on. So it was kind of like IMAX right there in my bedroom.
Yeah, but no popcorn. Unless you made popcorn.
Who said I didn't have popcorn?
Okay, well then.
I just didn't have the collector's container to put it in.
That's true. They also got like a little picture as well, too. David is also jealous of Miss Powell. So, David, I'm with you on that. Okay, before we get started talking about the show proper, Blake and I have been teasing a little bit of an announcement, so I want to get that out of the way. And what we're going to do here is I'm actually just going to play a little something, and then we'll talk about it for a second, and then we're going to get into the episode. So, here we go.
Space. The final frontier.
These are the voyages
Of the Starship
Enterprise.
Enterprise. No bloody A, B, C, or D.
Enterprise.
Deep Space Nine.
Defiant.
Voyager. discovery.
Cerritos, Protostar,
Titan.
Your ongoing mission.
To explore strange new worlds.
To seek out new life.
And new civilizations.
To boldly go where no man's gone
Where no one has gone.
before.
So it did play on YouTube because I tested it out beforehand. I probably should have told Blake that. So good job talking over shit, Blake. I'm proud of you.
Welcome.
Now, so we are going to be moving this sucker off of our Gray 17 channel because we got a lot to talk about when it comes to Star Trek. I think we've got a lot more coming up with Strange New Worlds, maybe a Star Trek Legacy and everything else. And a couple of you have been like, why do we have Star Trek on a Babylon 5 channel? Okay, fine. Fine. So, starting now, we are going to be launching our new podcast, YouTube channel, Exploring Star Trek. It's actually already live, and I will put the link in the show notes, so you can go check out that page and hit the subscribe button. And we will be putting stuff out regularly about Star Trek and keeping over here on Gray 17 talking about Babylon 5. Blake, you got anything you want to add about that?
I think the main part I would add is we're not really planning on doing full series walkthroughs with this. So that's the one thing to note. We're not going to pick, the original series or DS9 and start at the beginning and go all the way through. But what we're going to do is look at some of the key episodes, some of those pivotal moments from the original series, from Next Gen, from DS9, and the various iterations of Star Trek we've had, and really dive deep into those episodes, but also into some of the various pieces of Star Trek. We're hoping to discuss some of the design and production pieces as well, and some of the behind-the-scenes stories. So it's going to be an interesting dive into Star Trek as we go through this. I think one of the ones we're looking at starting with is actually looking at The Cage versus Strange New Worlds, looking at that 1960s vision of Pike and Star Trek, and then seeing how it's been realized with Strange New Worlds.
Cool. So again, make sure you click on the show notes, and I will also put it in the chat for those who are live. And check out and subscribe to that new channel. The podcast will also be live for those audio folks soon as I can, get something up there. And we'll continue this conversation over there after, of course, we do this one. So let's get back into this episode. And basically, let's just talk about, what do you guys want to talk about?
I loved it. I actually rewatched the rest of the episodes. There's some questions I kind of wanted answered, and I wrote them down, and none of my questions were answered, and I don't even care. It doesn't even matter. I loved it. And I know you said you were not feeling the Borg, and while I'm still not a fan of the Borg storyline, actually seeing that final cube explode was so satisfying. It was actually kind of disturbing how much I enjoyed that.
And I can sort of agree with you as well, Scott. The Borg did end up being a little underwhelming, especially because last week we talked about this was the Borg back to being the more terrifying Borg of TNG era, not the kind of neutered Borg that Voyager gave us. And it turned out to be a little bit of the second category there. Mm-hmm. You more or less had this massive cube with a Borg queen dealing with the effects of what Janeway did to them in the end of Voyager. So for me, I agree with you. It's a little bit of a build up on what I thought we were going to get for the Borg versus you've got a queen, maybe a couple drones around on the ship. And by the way, when did the Enterprise get that maneuverable? I'm just going to throw that out there. What the hell did Geordi do to that damn thing in Hangar 12? I agree on the Borg part. That it was a letdown, but the rest of it, I didn't care at that point. It was just, after we got out of there and it was fixed, it was like, cool, this is good.
Yeah, that's... for me, I'm never really an action guy when it comes to Star Trek. I don't need pew pew. I mean, I do enjoy a good starship battle, but after a while, it just becomes noise to me. And so I did enjoy watching the crew of the Titan take the ship back and basically act as a pawn as we try to deflect things from happening. And I really did enjoy watching the banter between the characters. I liked the crew on the bridge. I liked Geordi taking command. Data having to kind of reassert himself and make sure that people understand that, you know, even though he may be a little, as Riker will say later on the episode, batshit crazy, he still knows how to do his job. And everyone got a moment in that. And of course, I always like the Riker Worf banter. I think that's a great. They have great chemistry there. But go ahead.
Speaking of moments, though, in the back and forth, I did love the scene where they say they need to take out the weapons on the Borg cube, and they tell Crusher to fire, and then they all just turn around like, "What the hell?"
She blew up a lot of stuff. A lot of things have happened in 20 years.
Just that understated subtle. A lot's happened in 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so my biggest complaint is the Borg themselves. I think we could have had more there. We had 2 Borg drones, and we had an over CGI'd Queen, because it really wasn't even Alice Krieg up there hanging. When you look at the credits, it said the voice was Alice Krieg. So it was really fully CGI, or somebody in prosthetic that doesn't get credited. I just wanted more, and I know that's not what the point was. The point was that it's making sure Jack gets his hug and everything else, but there was a lot of buildup for not much to go on. But to your point, Blake, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, what does matter is we get a good closing for all of these characters, plus we get a good send-off to the team, and we get a good welcome to the new team, hopefully. But we'll talk more about that in a little bit. So, yeah, keep going. What do you want to talk
about? So I went back before watching this, and I watched Borg episodes just to try to see if there was what they might do to finish that part of the story. And what I was realizing is, like, watching especially the Best of Both Worlds, like, I felt like for such a good story, something was lacking. And then going to this series, and you get to see how talented all these actors truly are. And I felt like some of that was missing in the original TNG series. And then the whole Borg storyline, Voyager, was a whole different situation. And how even 7 of 9, like, her character felt so much more flat even after she left the collective. But seeing her now in Picard is just so much better. It's nice to actually see these actors show their true skills. I felt like some of the skills weren't highlighted as much as they could have been in the previous series.
Well, I think some of that, Emily, especially with TNG, they were still playing very much by Gene Roddenberry's rules. And Gene had this rule of there was no conflict amongst humanity in the future, which Ira Stephen Bear, we've gone back to the commentary on What We Left Behind, the DS9 documentary. I think it was Ira in that made the comment, or it might have been one of the other creatives, but I think it was Ira that said, makes for this great vision of the future, but it makes for terrible television.
Exactly.
And I think that was some of the limit, especially in some of those earlier Next Gen seasons. They started to get out of a little bit in season 7, but you didn't have that conflict amongst the crew. There was none of that tension. And I think this series embraced that a little more. They embraced that these were people. You saw that there was tension between Riker and Picard at times. There was tension between Geordi and Picard. There was that conflict piece that these were still friends and colleagues that respected each other, but there was that tension that they got to act out within this season, in this series.
And Deanna basically having to let Riker go onto the Borg cube, assuming that was the end. and they were going to die, but not together. And actually for her to be able to show that kind of emotion, I thought was really nice and good for her character.
Yeah, I think for me, what I've realized as we go through all this is I've always enjoyed the TNG characters because I enjoy those actors and I enjoy those characters, but I've never been a TNG fan. I watched TNG as a kid, and I remember watching All Good Things the night it aired. They actually had like a 3-episode build-up where it was like the top 3 episodes, and then you got into All Good Things. So it was like a whole night of Trek. But because TNG has always had the handcuffs on, Blake, to your point, is none of like the really big bombastic stuff has really, really ever got me very, very excited. I mean, there's some really good episodes out there that I really enjoy, but usually they're episodes that are different and do something different, like Unification, Relics, things of that nature. Maybe I'm just not really a huge Borg fan after First Contact. Actually, probably after Descent in season 7 of TNG. I think that's when they started getting really neutered. And so that stuff is fun to watch. And again, I enjoy the character interactions, but the whole stuff on the whole set piece, the Act 2 or Act 3 on the Borg Cube, it didn't do much for me, but I've already kind of beat that to death. Wokel's got a nice little thing I think would have made the episode a little better for me, and that would have been to keep our good buddy Shaw on the show for one more episode. Now, of course, we did get the Shaw hologram, which was really nice, but I think it would have been better if Shaw would have bit the big one here this episode, trying to hold off the Borg while they're attacking Space Dock. Maybe as they retake the bridge, that's when Shaw takes it, and then Seven gets command, which is, I think Seven getting command was important for her character, and obviously, as we talk about what potentially is going to come next, that makes perfect sense. But I think having a little bit more Shaw action in here would have been nice for me too. And I don't get me wrong, I did not dislike the episode. I think it was a good episode. I think it was fun. I just think I needed a little bit more when it came to the middle chunky part of the episode.
I think Emily's just trying to figure out how to get one of the Shaw holograms.
You're not wrong.
No touchy. Wokel also says, I'm a mixed bag. I'm a bit mixed about having the Borg again, back as the big bad, but ultimately it was good closing for TNG crew. You like this more than the First Contact movie. There's a lot of callbacks to the First Contact movie. That is absolutely true. Oh, and of course, Benway says, way better than seasons 1 and 2. Well, that's setting the bar pretty damn low, my friend. Yeah. So
one of the other,
good.
I was just say one of the other pieces to comment on real quick too was the very start when they're listening to the messages from Earth, and you've got the Federation president talking.
You mean Anton Chekhov?
The Anton Chekhov piece. I thought that was a nice callback. One, having Walter Koenig doing the voice.
Yes.
Because just about every iteration of Star Trek has somewhere had someone from the original series involved in some way. So it was nice to pull that in, but I did also like I think the naming of that as being Anton Chekhov was a nice call out also for Anton Yelchin from the Kelvinverse films.
Agreed.
So I just thought that was a nice little touch. Bridging across all of the different Star Trek eras and pieces to put into this. So
I will say I'm the nitpicky canon nerd when it comes to my Trek. And so when President Chekhov said, like my father said, I'm like, how freaking old was Chekhov when he had a kid? And how freaking old are you now? I'm going to think probably would have been a grandfather more than a father, but okay, cool. We'll let that go. But yeah, no, hearing Walter Koenig again, it was great. And he's such a freaking treasure as both Chekhov, but as we've said much on our Babylon 5 podcast, for me, he's more a Bester than he is Chekhov, but it was great. And we were talking about this last night when we were recording our Babylon 5 episode that drops next week, that for the most part, most of the actors from Trek are still with us, and that's not the case with Babylon 5. So the fact that Anton Yelchin, who was extremely young when he passed away, did pass away, it was really shocking. So giving another nod to him was very nice. I appreciated that a lot. Let's see what we got in the chat here as well. Wokel says that Tuvok together with Seven was so nice to see. Yeah, I mean, we had to get the real Tuvok in there after they played us the last time. And I do like that, yeah, we obviously a lot of people died. I mean, Space Dock got pretty much, blowed to hell. But they did make sure to point out, like, okay, most of the folks who the Changelings took over, they kept them in, like, the cooler just in case they needed them. So we recognize that not everyone got taken out. I'll tell you, the one cameo I was expecting that we didn't get was Janeway. I mean, Kate Mulgrew is absolutely still involved in this franchise. She is one of the main on Prodigy. She has come out and said herself that she would love to do more live action stuff. So I just assumed that Admiral Janeway would show up. And the fact that she didn't, and I when he pulled out the hologram, when I realized it was a hologram, I thought at first it was going to be Janeway and not Shaw. Now, I loved what Shaw did there, and I think it helps his character a lot, too.
I actually saw it.
Go ahead.
Because the way they framed that shot at first is that you saw Tuvok sitting kind of on one end of the table, and I almost was expecting the camera as Tuvok was reading that off to pan over and it be Admiral Janeway sitting next to Tuvok. That's the way I was expecting it to go. And
now I'm writing the scene. You've got you've got a hard lock on Tuvok's face, on Seven's face, and then when Tuvok says resignation denied or canceled or whatever he says, he doesn't say it. You pan the camera over and she says it because she's been in the room the whole time. That would have been fun too. I'm not even a Janeway fan, but that would have been fun.
Yeah, I was expecting her to show up at some point and she didn't, and I'm still like, wait, why? I need some answers there.
Woko says, huge fan of Walter Koenig playing Bester in B5. He really got a chance to shine way more than he did in Trek. And actually, Walter Koenig was on the Shuttlepod podcast, which if you haven't watched that, by the way, it's really fun. It's Dominic Keating and Connor Trenier, both from Enterprise, who they just chat with a whole bunch of Star Trek people. But Koenig said that the best thing about Trek for him was it got him the opportunity to play Bester down the road, because that's where he got to shine, and I completely agree with him. So what else we want to chat about, guys? In the chat, what do you want to talk about? What happened that you liked, that you questioned, that you didn't like? Blake, you joked about the maneuverability of the Enterprise. I think it was fun. The two scenes that were just fun as hell to watch, well, three scenes with the Enterprise, was when Beverly just completely does a trench run a la Star Wars. When Data decides to do, since I'm making Star Wars references, the Return of the Jedi fly through this Death Star, which the Galaxy class is not nimble like that, but I'm going to let it go because it was fun to watch. And of course, when they finally come to the rescue and pick up Worf, Riker, Jack, and Picard, and that shot of them just looking up, I question the physics of being able to look up in space or even in Jupiter's atmosphere, whatever, but it was fun to watch. So they really gave a lot of good beauty shots and fun shots to the Enterprise D, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah. I will say the model, the rendering they did, even when the Enterprise warped into Jupiter orbit and they did that flyby, did you notice you could see in the windows and see some of those kind of legacy sets through the windows of the Enterprise as it went by? That was such a beautifully done rendering of the ship. But the other part, we commented on while we wait on the chat to catch up, and I mentioned this before we started recording, was when Deanna jumped on the helm, I was a wee bit nervous because the two times we've seen Deanna drive the Enterprise, it hasn't ended well for the Enterprise. As Shaw put it, she hot dropped the saucer on Viridian 3. and then she's sitting at the helm in Nemesis and rams the thing into the scimitar. So Deanna driving the Enterprise does not have a great history of working out for the ship.
David says they souped up the CGI and that made the Galaxy more maneuverable. They even joked that it was the fat one. The fat one moves. This is where you need the Sovereign class. I would have imagined the Sovereign class doing those banking maneuvers a little bit better than the Galaxy, but what are you gonna do?
Are we gonna talk about the phaser hidden in Worf's bat'leth?
Oh.
And Riker goes to pick it up, and he's just like, "Damn, this is heavy."
So is Worf really, really strong, or does Riker need to do some bench pressing? Which one is it?
I mean, it might be both. I'm thinking a little column A, a little column B here, but I really like what they've done with Worf's character, and I thought that was great. And Riker's like, "You had a phaser?" And he's like, "But swords are fun."
We need more Michael Dorn in our lives. We absolutely do.
I know, there is not enough.
And I'm going to say, Riker needs to hit the gym a little bit because we've seen humans handle Klingon weapons before.
Yeah, Dax used a bat'leth. Now, I guess this isn't a bat'leth. This isn't
even a full bat'leth, though. It's a smaller sword.
Yeah. But, I do love the callback to Worf trying to be a pacifist and trying to, find peaceful solutions, and Riker just gives him a look when he pulls out a phaser from the hilt. I was like, yeah, that's perfect. That's great. For all that we're talking about here, I've already said this, but I was really happy that every single member of the Legacy crew got a time to shine. Every single one of them got something to do. I mean, obviously this is a Picard show. He got some more time, but everyone got something to do. And I think the person who stands out the most in this entire cast, more so now than they ever have, is Jonathan Frakes. I think he is just, everything he did this season was perfect. And I'm really, really happy that he got a lot of time to shine. The other one, as I mentioned, who didn't get to as much in this episode but got throughout the entire season, was Gates McFadden. I think she got more to do in this season than she did in any of the Trek movies and most of the original, the TNG. She was able to do quite a bit.
Yeah, I liked how early in the season they showed her true skill as a doctor, where the other doctor's relying on all this updated tech, and she's, actually, like, Shaw has internal bleeding, and the other doctor's like, "But I scanned him," and she's like, "Yes, that doesn't always work." I just thought it was nice to show her true capabilities.
Mm-hmm. David says he was a little disappointed there wasn't any more DS9 casts. I was still thinking, especially when they named the one episode Dominion, that we were going to see DS9, or at least go there for a bit, but didn't get that. But I also recognize, too, this was not a Deep Space Nine show. This was a Next Generation show, which is why next thing they need to do is Star Trek Cisco. Then we're fine. We will be good. The one thing I did know, I mentioned I was surprised we didn't have a Janeway cameo. The other two cameos I was surprised we didn't have. And Spade calls out one of them. Good old Reginald Barclay. I was expecting to see Reginald, even if he's on space dock or something, and we see a scene there. I was expecting to see him. And of course, I was expecting payoff to a line from Lower Decks. And that is that Miles O'Brien is the most important person ever in Starfleet. And I was like, okay, we're going to get Colm Meaney in here somewhere. He's going to do something. He's obviously a DS9 callback, but of course, before that, he was TNG. So those two, I was really shocked that we didn't get, especially after we got Shelby, we got Ro. We weren't going to get Pulaski because she said she wasn't interested. But those two, I expected to see at least pop up. But so, I mean, I'm not gonna poo-poo the episode because of it. But I was shocked that didn't happen. Benway says even Raffi was good. You know what? I've always liked Raffi. I haven't had a problem with her in any of the seasons. I've seen a lot of discourse about her character, and we had some of that in our comments from last week's episode, but I'd never had a problem with her, so I'm not sure where the hate comes on that one, but okay.
Well, we talked about this a little bit. And you and I were both a little nervous at first with this season with Raffi because we thought we were getting a do-over. You know, the same storyline of Raffi struggling with the substances and having kind of the batshit crazy pieces of her conspiracies. But when we got into it and discovered that was the cover that she was doing, I think that added a lot more depth and made the character better. And I was very glad to see we weren't retreading those pieces of Raffi.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to the idea of we get the crew we were seeing, but we'll talk about that in a moment. The other one was Spade says, yes, we needed more Miles and Tasha. Well, you know, we did get the call back to Tasha, and I think that was good. I mean, if they're not going to do Seela's storyline anymore, the best thing they could have done was that hologram, and that was poignant and it was nice. And of course, we did learn in this episode as well too that Data still has a thing for cats, so he definitely needs to get himself a spot too. He definitely needs to do that because I think it will also help Deanna out too because it seems like she's getting a little bored with his needs.
She's such a great counselor, isn't she?
She's really terrible at it, isn't she? Looking up vacation destinations as she's trying to work with Data through his issues. But again, I mean, Jonathan Frakes he comes in still batshit. The other thing too, you know, I am always the guy who says we don't need to kill off characters to make it worthwhile. And so I appreciate that a lot of the fan theories, especially when it comes to Deanna, because a lot of people thought Deanna wasn't long for this world. I love the fact that at the end of the day, all of them make it out fine. And that's the way it should be. You don't need to have like a poker game at the end and we're missing characters. That's not what we're here for. We're here to see one last hurrah where, as Data put it, they're the cavalry coming in to save the day. And I think it worked out really well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about the ending. There's several different endings there. We've got, of course, the huge homage to Star Trek IV when we're entering Space Dock. First, I want to hear about what your guys' thoughts on the new designation for the USS Titan.
I like it. And I think it sets up, if there's going to be a Star Trek Legacy series, it's the one thing you and I have said. There's not been a Star Trek with the Enterprise since Enterprise went off the air. You know, we've not had, Discovery hasn't featured an Enterprise or even had an Enterprise other than when the 1701 showed up. Now, Strange New Worlds does have the original Enterprise going, but that is the only Star Trek series actually with the crew of the Enterprise at this point. So I think this opens up the possibility to bring back a new show, or even if they do a film at some point as the spinoff, as the next iteration of this, it sets up that you've got the Enterprise still out there with the legacy of the next gen cast going forward.
Yeah, I mean, if they did a spinoff where the Enterprise crew is a thief, a pirate, and a spy, I'm there for it. I'd watch it. Sign me up. I thought it was cool.
I assumed because they were decommissioning the F that we were going to see the G at the end. I did not assume that it was going to be the Titan, but now that I'm thinking about it after they've done it, it makes perfect sense that you made the Titan look the way it did. Because let's be honest, because a lot of people were complaining, well, what about the Luna class? Why didn't we just have the Titan look like the Luna class? That wouldn't make a good Enterprise. You need an Enterprise that kind of fits the mold of every single Enterprise iteration before it. It's another reason why I hate the J, because the J is just obnoxiously ugly. But the Neo-Constitution class just, it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. I also like the fact that we have a 1-year gap there, and Riker is the one giving the captain's log. So I assume there's going to be a lot of beta canon with that year where I think the Enterprise was out moving around doing stuff. It sounds like to me that the Enterprise D was, reactivated for a year and did things for a year before they decided to, okay, now it's time to bring back the G. So that'd be interesting comic books and books to come. Captain Riker of the Enterprise D in the 25th century. But yeah, so I really love that scene in general because, again, it's a huge homage to Star Trek 4 with Crusher, Picard, and Jack in the shuttle pod going into space dock. And even at that point, when they show the Titan and Picard calls out the Titan, I'm like, okay, they're going to do the exact same thing that they did in Star Trek 4. They're going to show us the Excelsior, and then we're going to pan over and go past the Excelsior and see what it is. But I'm more happy that we got something that we fell in love with, because I fell in love with the Titan. So now that the Titan is going to be that new Enterprise, and hopefully we'll get to see a lot more of her. Yeah, I think that was great. Then we go into the other two major scenes. Of course, we have the decommissioning part 2 of the Enterprise D, but we've got our poker scene. So let's anything you guys want to talk about with the final little goodbye to all of our guys, and then we'll talk about the new Enterprise scene as well.
I just think that was perfect. I mean, you had all good things where Picard finally goes and sits down at the poker table and says, I should have done this a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So you have that scene in the bar where they're all talking and having fun and doing a few toasts. I did think it was interesting. They mentioned Guinan giving them the side. I think Guinan should have been in that scene. I will add that. Guinan should have been in that scene, and Whoopi would have done it.
Yeah, she would have come out for a day.
Yeah,
she'd just have her behind the bar throughout the deck of cards. I think that would have been good.
Yeah, that it should have been. They're having the drinks. Guinan pulled out the deck of cards and throws it to them. But other than that, that scene was just perfect. Mm-hmm. And honestly, that scene, you didn't see the characters there having fun. This was the actors themselves. This was, I think, honestly, one of the most genuine scenes they had with that group of people sitting around that table.
I would be very surprised if I found out that was not the last scene shot of the series. I think that would be the last thing on the call sheet. We got a couple other things in the chat as well, too. Why isn't Jack an acting ensign? You know what? I accepted in the Kelvin timeline that Kirk became captain in 5 minutes, so I will let Jack be an ensign. He probably already outranks Harry Kim, so it's fine. He's good to go.
They answered that in the shuttle, Scott. Nepotism.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, of course. I mean, nepotism is a constant in the universe, much like bureaucracy. But the one thing I did find kind of funny is I guess he's now Seven's personal pet. He's like, you don't get a job on the bridge. You're just the personal counselor to the captain. I'm like, well, okay, what does that entail? What is the position description? Can I get more information on that, please? Because that just seems interesting.
There are worse personal pets than Ed Spaliers. Just saying.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to leave that one down there. I'm just going to let it go.
Emily got her Todd Stashwick moments. I can get mine.
Yeah, and Benway, you're completely right. Benway says, can we agree most of our gripes are mostly nitpicking? Yeah, of course. I enjoyed this episode a lot. I will go back to watch it again. As we've said almost every episode, we were told going into this that episodes 9 and 10 are a TNG movie, and you know what? They are. And they're one of the best TNG movies. I think it's one of those where if you sat down and watched these two, and those who were lucky enough, Powell, to see it in IMAX, good for you. I think it makes perfect sense. I think it has a good act structure. I think it did well. I think the Borg were neutered a lot way before Terry Matalas took this thing over. That's not his fault. I think that was bad decision-making by several different people in several different shows. So, but yeah, no, I think it really is, in general, a great way to send off this crew. And I think it's also a great way to continue the story. And that's the whole thing with Trek, right? It's always been a hopeful outlook to the future. And you don't want to end this season or series on a note of like, okay, it's all done. So we get the next step, the next generation. with our new Enterprise crew, which I was all smiles through all of that, including the mid-credit scene too. So what do you guys think of what we could potentially have here? And Terry Matalas has already said he has plans, and we've been throwing it out there a lot. And all of you on your social medias should use hashtag Star Trek Legacy and let Paramount know that's what we want. But what do you guys think of what could happen next with this crew of the Enterprise G?
Shenanigans. Lots and lots of shenanigans with those three.
When what was the line with Q and Jack said, you know, my dad told me the trials was over, and Q's just like, for him.
Mm-hmm. Q has a new Picard to mess with.
Mm-hmm.
All Jack needs to do is punch him in the face, and Q will never mess with him again.
Although Q and Seven could be an interesting mix.
That'd be fun.
You know, Picard played the games with Q. Cisco just laid his ass out on the floor. He never showed up again. And now you've got Seven.
That's still my favorite Cisco meme. I use it all the time. Why is Cisco a better Captain Picard? Q shows up, Picard quotes Shakespeare and can't get rid of him. Q shows up, Cisco punches him, never has to deal with Q ever again. Cisco, the best captain. But yeah, you know, there's so much opportunity there. Blake, to your point, we have not had a show with an Enterprise that's not a prequel in a very long time. And so there's a lot of good stuff that we could be doing there. We've got a Federation and a Starfleet that is going to be rebuilding itself. Riker calls it out, Stardate 1, because it really is a new era. Maybe a new golden era for the Federation after coming out of the Dominion War and everything else for the past 20 some odd years. So I think it'd be a great time to kind of re-explore the galaxy. And I'm all for Captain Seven. I'm all for number 1 being Rafi. And I think that crew in general, I mean, I said it already. I think I got to know this crew better in 10 episodes than I got to know the bridge crew of the Discovery in at least 2 seasons, if not 3 seasons. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think we have some possibilities there. Spade says a 5-year mission to the Delta Quadrant. Oh God, please no more Herosians. Please. I've had enough. I'm good. Thank you. I'm set. I'm fine. Yeah. And David says best way, in my honest opinion, to describe this season is to call it a bridge between TNG and TNNG. Yeah, I think that's a mouthful. So instead of the next generation, I think Star Trek Legacy makes perfect sense for me. But yeah, I think this was absolutely the ending of one era and a passing of the torch to the next, and I'm all for it. So let's talk about prediction, guys. Where do we think we're going to go from here? Not so much with the show, in terms of the characters, but do we think we're going to get this thing? Do we think we're going to get a new Star Trek based in the 25th century with this intrepid crew of the Enterprise NCC 1701G? What do we think?
I want one. I don't know if we'll get it, but I want it.
Well, that's the spirit.
I still want a Space Nine movie, but, you know, I don't know if that'll ever happen.
Well, if you've watched What We Left Behind, you got season 8's first 2 episodes. And those episodes sound interesting. I'm not a big fan of killing off Nog, but okay. I love the idea of Bashir being with Section 31. I love the idea of Kira being obviously in command of DS9, but also, if you watch What We Left Behind, she's also now a full-on religious figure. So that's an interesting aspect for Kira as well, too. So I think Ira Stephen Bear has a lot he could do with that. So
And
I'd
it
be all
needs
for
to
that.
be done.
There's a comic series going on right now, and I have not read it, but it just came out. I think they're like on book 4 or 5, and it is Cisco leading a team of basically nostalgic characters. I think he's got Data on his team. He's got Spock, which I don't understand, but he does. So there's a comic out there where Cisco has returned again. The Cisco.
I'm just gonna Google that, see if I can buy it.
Yeah, enjoy. Blake, what do you think? Are we getting Legacy?
I think we are. I think they set this up to perfectly go into a next phase. And you said it at one point that much like Marvel, that Terry Metalis has had a thing on his wall basically saying this is where we're going. I think he has a fully constructed vision of this. We know what we've got coming, that there's the Academy series that they've talked about. We've got a new season of Strange New Worlds coming, but Discovery's ending next year. Right? It's 24 or 25 that Discovery's ending.
24. Yep, they've already filmed the final season. Yep.
The 24 Discovery is ending. I look for... They're giving up on their idea of, year-round, wall-to-wall Star Trek, which I think is good. I think we need some space in here. You don't want to oversaturate the franchise. But I'm thinking that they're going to be looking for something else to pick up the torch after Discovery. And I would look for whether it be San Diego Comic-Con this year or possibly next year. I think you're going to see an announcement because what was it? Season 2 of Discovery had the introduction of Pike in the Enterprise, and I mean, fan support was just
and it took over a year.
Wanting Strange New Worlds.
It took over a year to get Strange New Worlds announced after season 2 was done. It took over.
So
a year.
I would say we're looking at about a year from now. I would say San Diego Comic-Con next year. Or Star Trek Day next year, because they do the Star Trek Day announcements. I think on one of those two, you're going to see the announcement of Star Trek Legacy.
I would go one step further, and I think you what you just said could be completely right. Again, like I said, it took about a year for Strange New Worlds to get greenlit. I think Paramount is just waiting to see the final numbers. This is without a doubt. We know this from Nielsen ratings. This is the first Star Trek show to crack the top 10 of streaming. And that was, again, Nielsen's about a month behind. So we have not seen the numbers for episodes 8, 9, and 10 yet. I think episode 10 is going to be through the roof, especially with all the hype. And, Paramount recognized it too. Paramount spent a lot of money to put a lot of free IMAX screens out there. Paramount spent a lot of money to do something in Central Park with the Enterprise. You don't do that for a show that you don't care about. And so I think my personal opinion is it's going to be Comic-Con this year that we're going to get an announcement. Also, too, it would just be short-sighted of Paramount not to run with this thing. Now, Benway in the chat has been saying that as long as Kurtzman isn't involved, I'm good. I'm gonna get obliterated by some Trek fans here. Without Kurtzman, you don't have Trek right now. I'm just gonna throw it out there. I mean, have I liked everything he's done? No. I think Discovery took a few years to get its sea legs, but what Star Trek show didn't take a few years to get its sea legs? And we are absolutely in another golden era of Trek. And that's why we're going to be talking a lot more Trek on our other channel, which you can find the link down in the show notes. So
I still think a lot of the issues on early Discovery is, I'm with you. Kurtzman has done a lot of things that I don't necessarily agree with. And I do think it's interesting the two most popular Star Trek shows right now are the two that he has the least involvement with. But you're right. We wouldn't be here without him. Mm-hmm. But as far as the issues with Discovery, I still think the main thing there, I blame a lot more of that on Brian Fuller, actually. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think Brian Fuller had an absolute mess of a vision that was not cohesive, and it showed in season 1. Well, I think season 1 was the fallout from Brian Fuller. And season 2 was the trying to reset that and figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And Paramount shit canned him for it.
Yeah.
I'm struggling through season 1 of Discovery again.
Why?
Oh, we all did.
Why would you do that to yourself? Just go back to where Pike shows up.
Hug.
Yeah, just go back. Well, I'll help you out later on. But go back to where Pike shows up and you'll be much better off. Even season 2 is rough, but at least got Pike. But yeah, I mean, I get it. Some people aren't big fans of it. But it's the same thing with Akiva Goldsman. Akiva Goldsman did season 2 of Picard, and well, it wasn't overly amazing, but you give that man a show that he's interested in, you give him a writer's room that makes sense, and you get Strange New World season 1, which still, for me, even after watching Picard season 3, which I really enjoyed, I still think Strange New World Season 1 is my favorite new Trek season that's been out so far. I am extremely excited to see what happens with Season 2 and, as they've announced, Season 3 of Strange New Worlds. So, for me, I just want good storytelling. I don't care who's running it, as long as it's good storytelling. And right now, say what you will about Kurtzman, but again, without Kurtzman, you do not have this. You do not have Picard Season 3 without Kurtzman. You don't. So, say what you will, but that's where it is. Benway's still going on in the chat. I hear you, man. I hear you, but it is what it is. So
is it, I have to ask a question. Is it my personal bias?
Yes.
Or does anyone else really want a series or a movie that shows the transition from Riker to Shaw on the Titan?
No. I don't want to go back. And I just said that Strange New Worlds is my favorite new show, but I don't want any more going back. I want to move forward.
Okay, I just want more Captain Shaw, all right? I'm sorry.
Well,
there we go.
They shouldn't have killed him off. I want Todd
I know they
Stashwick
shouldn't
too,
have.
but
I'm
not
mad about it. Who are we kidding?
Wokel kind of defines why I'm looking forward to Jerry Ryan taking over this thing. I really like Seven as captain. She brings that kind of Kirk's unconventional way of strategy and thinking in tough situations, which is exactly what Shaw said. I loved what Shaw said. Maybe the rules she broke were already broken. I love that. And as somebody who gets himself in trouble with the bureaucracy every now and again, I agree. Maybe your rules are dumb, and maybe that's why we break them. And also, Jerry Ryan liked one of my tweets a few days ago, so I'm already more smitten than usual for Jerry Ryan. So I'm all for it.
That's a feat.
That's true. That's true. Oh my goodness, Spade! I have never watched Strange New Worlds. Leave as soon as we're done. Well, first off, go to Exploring Star Trek's YouTube channel and subscribe. Okay, do that first. And then the next thing immediately, call in sick for work or whatever. Go watch Season 1 of Strange New Worlds. You'll thank me for it later. Okay? Just do it, Spade. Do it. Even Beanway says Strange is good. I agree. I think it's great. And I haven't watched the trailer yet, but Blake already spoiled for me. Sounds like we're going to get some Klingon action. So, some real Klingon action.
I watched the trailer. I am super excited.
I did see the D7 show up. I saw that little clip. I'm like, ooh, it's a D7. And it looks like a D7. No more Discovery bullshit Klingons. Yay!
It's going to be interesting to see how they explain that away.
I don't think they're going to. I think it's going to be a hand wavy. Like,
Just ignore that.
Forget it never happened.
It's like the Jurati Borg. That's weird Borg. Shaw just said they're weird. That's not the real Borg. Benway says Peck is a great Spock. I think, of course, Leonard Nimoy is the best Spock. But between Peck and Zachary Quinto, and don't get me wrong, I still think Star Trek Beyond is one of my favorite Trek movies. But Ethan Peck does a much better Spock than Zachary Quinto ever did. So I like Ethan Peck a lot. Everyone on that cast is just great. And I'm looking forward to letting them kind of run around and have more fun. Dr. Mbenga is great. Number One is really fun. I think she is having just a ball playing that character. Rebecca Romaine. So, Strange New Worlds starts up in June, and you better believe we'll be talking about it. So, Spade, go catch up. Go do it. Go do it now. Okay, I think that's about it for this episode. Anything else you guys want to say before we wrap up?
Nope.
Oh, Woko says he's going to tie it all together with Babylon 5. Trek makes me sad sometimes because I wish B5 had this opportunity to shine too again. I think younger generations really need it. I think you're going to enjoy San Diego Comic-Con. I think you're going to enjoy that. I also think you're going to enjoy what JMS has been teasing on Twitter lately. So you may want to be watching what he does on Twitter in the next few days. And you maybe want to be hitting that notify button for this channel, Gray 17, because we will definitely be talking about some announcements that are coming. And I will leave
you guys
it.
will. I won't.
Yes, no, the newbies will not. Sorry, newbies, because based on what we'll have to screen it for you first. We'll have to see if it's okay for your virgin ears to hear. We'll see. But so now you guys have a mission. You have 2 channels. Gray 17 will continue to be Babylon 5. We're going to continue to be chatting that up. We've got the end of season 2 rolling here pretty quick. We're going to be doing our live season 2 wrap up in just a few weeks. So click that notify button so you can join us live for that. And then down in the show notes, and I'll put in the chat one more time as well, you can go over to our new Star Trek YouTube channel, which is Exploring Star Trek, and subscribe over there, and we will start putting content over there for all the Star Trek goodness as we move forward. So hopefully we'll see you continuing to watch Babylon 5 with us and join us over at Exploring Star Trek to talk all things Trek. And Wokel says, that's helpful news. Thanks for the live stream. Thumbs up. Well, make sure you click that thumbs up. Click it. But yeah, I'm not overly in the know, but I'm in the know more than some, and it's going to be a good year for Babylon 5 fans, and we'll leave it at that. So until next time when we talk something, either Babylon 5 or Trek, I've been Scott, and with me has been
Blake
And Emily.
And Wokel says the magic words, subscribed. And Benway says, subscribed. Thank you. Ooh. David says he may be sending us an idea. David, you know where to find us. See ya. Okay, everybody. Until next week when we talk B5 and on Exploring Star Trek when we talk about something about Star Trek, let's get the hell out of here. Boldly.